The next phylum that we deal with is phylum Echinodermata. One by one we have seen each phylum in the kingdom Animalia, and we get to know that whatever classification is being made, one thing is kept in consideration, that is the phylogenetic relationships are kept in the mind, and the phylums that we come across one by one, we see that there is some level of development and evolution, we can say. The next phylum that we come across is oftenly superior than the previous one. This is what happens, and so is in the case of Echinodermata. What you see over here is a few echinoderms, and the most typical example is that of starfish, and what you oftenly come across in the case of echinoderms, that must be in your knowledge if I talk about starfish, that it is present in the ocean, lower ocean zones, that is ocean floor. It would be present next to the ocean floor. So we are going to see what would be the basic characteristics present in an animal if it is to be classified into phylum Echinodermata. First of all, we break this name, and when we break this name, we get to see that there are two words, echino and dermata. The first thing that we have, echinus, is basically spines. So echino word is derived from echinus, which means spines, and dermata is skin. So they would have spiny skin that would be present. These are the examples that are given. Now they have an endoskeleton made up of calcareous ossicles which are mesodermal in origin. So there is a mesodermal skeleton that is present, and it would be made up of calcareous ossicles. Next thing that we have in our consideration is that there would be organ system level of organization. There would be triploblastic and coelomate, of course. They would be coelomate organisms. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been placed in the 9th position in non-chordates, and phylum Echinodermata comes after all the phylums we have discussed. So we have discussed till now that there are triploblastic phylums and coelomate organisms which are present, and as I told you, there is the endoskeleton that is of mesodermal origin. So they are going to have 3 layers, and inside those 3 layers there would be coelom which would be present. Now one thing you are seeing over here is that they are placed in the 9th position. They are phylogenetically placed, and we are very well taking into consideration the evolutionary relationships and the complexity in terms of body organization. So what we see over here is that the symmetry happens to be radial symmetry, and when I say radial symmetry, it is pentaradial basically. Now when I mean pentaradial, when I say pentaradial, you can associate what the meaning would be. As you can see, it is having 5 arms over there, so the radial symmetry would be present in each arm, so that is why it is pentaradial symmetry. But now you would be a little bit confused and surprised, because in the beginning when we started with kingdom Animalia, I had told you that bilateral symmetry is the symbol of development basically. Those organisms which had radial symmetry, they were placed way before earlier in the 1st and 2nd phylums, as we had discussed, not 1st and 2nd, the 2nd and 3rd, that was Cnidaria and Ctenophores. So we were discussing about those phylums, they were radially symmetrical. When we talk about the phylum which is at the 9th position, which comes after mollusks and arthropods, and that is having radial symmetry, it might baffle you a bit, but you don't have to be confused or concerned about it, because what is present in this phylum which places them at the 9th position is that their larva, that is brachiolarva, that larva is basically a bilaterally symmetrical larva. Now because they have indirect development, and we talk about larval development, that larva is showing a bilateral symmetry while the adult is showing the radial symmetry, which means that these organisms are somewhat close to the chordates because they have close resemblance to the chordates. The larva that we would talk about, that would be in close proximity to those of the chordates. So that is why we have this phylum at the 9th position. Moving further, they have a complete digestive system. Now when we talk about complete digestive system, you have to keep in mind that they have a ventral mouth and dorsal anus that is present in their system. Ventral mouth and dorsal is anus. Okay, this is the arrangement. Now what you would see over here, let us see the basic body plan of this echinoderm. This is the starfish that we are having. These are the 5 arms that are present. You would see a peculiar arrangement of tube feet that is present. We would come to know that this tube feet is an important part of water vascular system, which is important for the respiration and circulation. But before that, what we see over here is that there are digestive glands, there is central ring canal, there is a stomach. The dorsal side is having the anus, there is a madreporite through which all the water enters the body, and this is the actual arrangement. The digestive system is complete because it is having 2 openings, one ventral and other one is dorsal. Over here you can see the actual arrangement. Clearly you can see the endoskeletal plates, alright, which are calcareous. You have a sieve plate through which the madreporite would be connected and all the movement of water inside would go, and there are eye spots. There are tube feet which are not shown over here. These are basically the digestive glands. In the previous diagram we had seen that there were tube feet which were present. There is a central disc. The cardiac stomach lies over here. Each arm has been shown, and this basically gives you an idea that these are spiny organisms, as you can see over here. That is why the name is echinoderms. And just for a basic understanding of the body structure, we have this organization depicted. Now this is sea star that we are talking about, that is starfish. And we have the water vascular system that we are going to discuss. Now this water vascular system is for respiration as well as digestion, as well as it is having, you must have seen in the previous diagram that wherever this radial canal is present, there are digestive glands which are present. So this basic system of water vascular system arrangement, this is for digestive as well as circulatory and respiratory. Now this madreporite is the site from where the water would enter. This water enters the madreporite, from where it goes to this this stone canal that is in association with the ring canal. This ring canal is in contact and continuity with each of the radial canal that is present. This radial canal has ampulla next to it, and the ampulla are having the tube feet which are present. So this is basically the water vascular system of an echinoderm that is present, and you must be surprised to know that they do not have an excretory system. If ever asked that which part of an echinoderm is responsible for digestion and movement, you can say, if you are being asked that which part is responsible, we are going to refer to the water vascular system. But if you are asked about a part that is responsible for these systems, so you are going to mention tube feet over there. Okay. Now moving further, the reproduction is sexual. And there is one phenomena, that is the asexual reproduction, that if it is present, it would be present by fragmentation. It would take place by fragmentation. And over here we do not talk about that fragmentation as asexual reproduction. We talk about that the echinoderms, they have high capacity of regeneration. So over here what you come across is there is lot of regeneration that can take place, and when regeneration is being considered, supposedly one arm of this particular starfish that is taken as example, it is amputated from here, that means it is cut from here, it would grow that arm particularly because of regeneration. So you can make it out that these organisms can be of great help, their tissue structure study, and if we get into what are the basic proteins which are responsible for regeneration, we can come across the techniques and medical technology where we can regrow our organs, amputated organs. That is a different part, but you need to remember that they have high capacity of regeneration, and that regeneration could be termed in asexual reproduction, but it is basically this phylum's exclusive feature. Now talking next, there is indirect development. As I told you, the larva is radially symmetrical and the larva happens to be brachiolaria. So if you can remember the name, it's good. Even if you don't, you can associate that brachiolarial larva is the one which is having the bilateral symmetry in case of echinoderms. Now one by one we are going to see a few examples and learn their names, what they are. First one is the sea star, or what we call as starfish. So the first one is Asterias, that is the starfish or the sea star. The second one is Echinus. The other name for this is Aristotle's lantern, okay. Otherwise it is known as sea urchin. The one picture that we saw in the beginning, that was at the third place. Take a look once again. This was sea urchin basically. Then we have Antedon, that is sea lily. All these are going to have spines on their body. Then we have Cucumeria, that is sea cucumber. Quite easy to learn this name if you get the common name. Cucumeria is sea cucumber. Then we have Ophiuria. Ophiuria, that is brittle star, the one shown over here. So what we have is, the examples are here with us. We have seen their reproduction, that is going to be sexual. They have high capacity of regeneration. What is their symmetry? Why they are placed in the 9th position? They are coelomate, they are triploblastic. So this is all about echinoderms that we have to understand. You have to learn these examples with the common names, and it would be better if you see the pictures and learn the names according to those that picture input that comes into your mind. You'll be able to